The year was 1865, and the frontier didn't forgive anyone, not man, woman, or child. It was a land where the wind scraped bones clean, and the sun bleached your past till it vanished. There were no second chances out here, only last stands. Bo Harper had stopped believing in salvation the day he buried his wife under a cottonwood and marked the grave with a rusted horseshoe. That was 2 winters ago. Since then, he'd spoken to no one but his horse and the ghosts riding shotgun in his memory. He was fixing a fence line when he saw her. At first, she looked like smoke, a shimmer in the heat, half hidden by the waving grass. Then she stumbled, and that's when Bo saw the blood. A thin trail trickled down her shin, carving a red path through the dust clinging to her bare legs. She wore nothing on her feet, just torn cotton and bruises on skin too pale for the sun. Her arms were scraped raw. Her left eye was nearly swollen shut. She collapsed near the north gate of his ranch. Bo didn't run. He didn't believe in sudden movements. He walked slow, steady, one hand near his colt, the other raised as if approaching a spooked Mustang. She was breathing, shallow, uneven. "You alone?" he asked. She flinched. Bo knelt. Her lips moved, but no words came. She was young, 16, maybe 18. Her fingers trembled when he reached for her pulse. Her wrist was thin as broom handle. He felt the thump of her heart. Faint but fighting. He lifted her in his arms and carried her across the yard to his cabin. His dog, Bristle, barked once and fell silent. The girl moaned softly when he laid her on the cot. He fetched a wet cloth and cleaned the worst of the dust from her face. Her skin was hot with fever. She stirred when he brought the canteen to her lips, drank like she hadn't tasted water in days. When he tried to take it away, she clutched it with both hands and drank until she choked. "Easy," Bo said. That's when she looked at him, one eye wide, the other squinting through swelling. "He's coming." "Who?" Her voice cracked. "My stepdaddy, Rufus Crane." "He don't stop." Bo felt the name strike like a knife pressed to the ribs. Rufus Crane. He'd heard that name spit in saloons and whispered around campfires. A drunk, a brawler, and a man with no regard for law. Stories said he once burned a homestead down with his wife inside. "Where'd you come from?" She shook her head, curls matted with sweat and dirt. "Don't matter. He always finds me." Bo stood slowly. "You got a name?" "Clara." He nodded. "I'm Bo Harper." She blinked at him, trying to stay awake. "Don't worry, Clara. You're safe here." But even as he said it, Bo knew better. Out here, safe was a lie told to women and children. Still, something in her face, maybe the stubborn way she held his gaze, stirred something cold and buried inside him. He hadn't let anyone in since Mary died. He'd turned away riders with busted wagons and drifters begging a place to rest. But he didn't turn Clara away. That night, he loaded all 4 of his rifles, repaired the trapdoor to the storm cellar, chained the dog at the gate, and oiled the hinges so they wouldn't squeal. Clara slept fitful, feverish, crying out once for a mother who'd likely been gone longer than memory could hold. By morning, her fever had broken. She sat up slowly, clutching a wool blanket around her shoulders like armor. "You're not sending me back," she said. Bo didn't answer right away. He was pouring coffee into a tin cup, steam rising like smoke from a pistol barrel. "He'll come. You believe me?" He looked at her, really looked. Her jaw had a cut across it, like she'd been struck with something hard and fast. A welt above her collarbone, finger-shaped bruises on her wrists. "I believe you. He wants to marry me." Her voice was flat now. "Says it's legal. Since Ma's dead." Bo set the cup down harder than he meant to. The tin rattled against the table. "No, it ain't legal. He don't care." He didn't ask what she'd done to run. Didn't need to. Some things didn't need words. A knock came at noon. Not a polite knock. Not the kind that waits for permission. A heavy, dragging fist. Bo reached for the rifle, leaned by the door, and cracked it open with the barrel pointed low. 3 men sat on horses. The one in front had a crooked hat and a long scar across his cheek. Not Rufus, but trouble all the same. "We're looking for a girl," the scarred man said. Bo didn't blink. "Ain't no girl here," but a goat with bad manners. The man smirked. Funny, someone seen a girl headin' this way, barefoot, bleedin', seemed she was in a rush. I've got salt pork to cure and fences to mend, Bo said. Ain't got time for ghosts. One of the other men leaned forward. You sure, Harper? Bo's trigger finger twitched. Dead sure. The men didn't dismount, just stared for a long minute. Then the leader tipped his hat, like a man marking time. Tell you what, he said, if you do see her, tell her daddy misses her, and she ought to come home before things get messy. Bo didn't move until they rode off. Then he shut the door, locked it, and pulled the rifle closer. They'll be back, Clara said. Yeah. She was standing in the corner, fists balled at her sides. Maybe I should leave, she whispered. I don't want your blood on my hands. Bo walked over and knelt. That man out there ain't your daddy. And you're not leaving. Why? Because I already burned once. He looked toward the fireplace, toward the tin cross on the mantel. I ain't letting it happen again. She blinked fast, swallowing tears. You don't even know me. He gave her a half-smile. I know enough. By dusk, the dog barked twice and then went quiet. That was the signal. Trouble. Flames erupted near the stable. The bastards had set it alight, trying to smoke them out. Bo handed Clara the Sharps rifle. You ever shoot? She shook her head. Time to learn. He cracked the door open and fired once, warning shot. Run out the back, he told her. To the storm cellar. Wait till I come. I'm not leaving you. Bo looked at her, firm and steady. That's an order, Clara. Her lip trembled, but she ran. He stepped onto the porch, rifle at his hip. The fire crackled behind him, painting the night orange and red. Shadows darted near the corral. He aimed and fired. A scream echoed. One less. A bullet slammed into the post beside him. He dove for cover and returned fire. The air was thick with gunpowder and pine smoke. Horses neighed wildly, spooked by the flames. Bo moved like he had in the war, low, fast, ruthless. He dropped a second man behind the water trough. The third fled into the trees. When it was done, Bo's shoulder throbbed with a graze, and his hands were black with soot. The stable was gone. So was the east fence. He walked back inside, closing the door behind him. Clara crawled from the trapdoor, eyes wide. You okay? She asked. He nodded, then sat down, slow and deliberate. He looked tired, older than his years. Still want to leave? He asked. She shook her head. No, sir. He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Don't call me sir. She sat beside him. What should I call you? He thought a moment. Bo works. They sat in silence, the only sounds the crackling of the fire and the soft whistle of wind pushing through the broken window. Clara stared at the embers, then spoke without turning. He beat Ma near every day, said it made her stronger. When she died, he said it was my turn. I ran the first chance I got. You're not going back, Bo said. He won't stop. Then we ride before sunrise. Clara turned to him, surprised. Where? Somewhere he ain't. You'd leave your land? He looked around at the wreckage. Ain't much left to save. Clara reached into her dress pocket and pulled out a folded picture. A sketch, faded and torn. My ma drew this, she said. Said it was what freedom looked like. Bo took it. The sketch was of a river, wide and endless, with mountains in the back and two figures riding side by side. She ever get there? He asked. No. Bo folded the paper gently and handed it back. Then I reckon it's our job to finish the ride. Outside, the night was quiet again. The smoke drifted east, carrying with it the ashes of everything Bo Harper had tried to hold on to. In its place stood a girl too strong for her years and a man learning, maybe too late, that the only walls worth building were the ones that kept the darkness out, not people. And somewhere beyond the hills, Rufus Crane was licking his wounds, cursing the name of the man who dared take what he claimed as his. He would be back. That much was certain. But Bo Harper would be waiting. Dawn crawled over the scorched earth like a wounded thing, spilling blood-orange light across the smoldering remains of the Harper Ranch. The stable was ash. The eastern fence sagged in ruin. Smoke hung low, clinging to the dirt like a ghost unwilling to leave. Bo Harper saddled his gelding in silence, jaw tight, ribs bound with cloth where the graze from the night's firefight still wept through linen. Clara stood behind him, barefoot and quiet, the hem of her dress singed at the edge. He looked at her once before cinching the final strap. "Can you ride? I can hold on." "That'll do." He swung into the saddle, offered his hand. She took it. Her grip was firmer than he expected. They rode east, skirting the edge of the timberline where pines grew thick and wild enough to swallow a man whole. Bo didn't look back. There was nothing left behind worth a glance. By midday, the sun was blistering again. It bounced off rock and riverbed, sending waves of heat up from the earth like it wanted to peel their skin off. Clara didn't complain. She didn't ask where they were headed. She just clung to the back of the saddle, arms around Bo's waist, her silence telling stories too awful for daylight. Around them, the land grew meaner. Jagged rock faces, coyote tracks in the dust, buzzards circling in lazy arcs above. Bo kept his eyes sharp, scanning the horizon for riders, listening for hoofbeats that didn't belong. They camped that night in a narrow canyon with high walls and cold shade. Bo gathered kindling, struck flint, and got a flame going. Clara sat cross-legged near the fire, knees tucked to her chest. She watched the sparks rise like prayers that wouldn't be answered. "Tell me about her," she said quietly. "Who?" "Your wife." He stirred the fire, poked a stick into the coals. "Mary. She was the only person who could outshoot me and outstubborn me in the same breath. Had hair like burnt molasses and a laugh that made coyotes stop to listen." "What happened?" "She tried to carry our child during a hard winter. There was sickness sweeping the valley. Doc couldn't get through the pass. She didn't make it." Clara stared into the fire. "You never left after that?" "No. Figured I'd done my time. Wanted the world to leave me alone." She was quiet for a long while. Then, sorry. He looked at her, really looked, saw how thin she was under the firelight, skin drawn tight over bone. She didn't ask for pity, didn't flinch from pain. He recognized that look. It was the same one he'd worn for the first year after burying Mary. "You don't have to talk," he said. "I want to." She pulled a piece of folded paper from the pocket of her dress. The sketch again. The river, the two riders, the far mountains. Ma drew this while he was out drinking one night. Said someday we'd ride away. Just us. I'd hold her hand and she'd point to the horizon and say, "That's where we begin again." What happened? He came home early. Found the drawing. Tore it up. Said dreams were for cowards and whores. Bo clenched his jaw. "You kept it?" Pieced it back together with pine sap and hope. She smiled faintly. He smiled back, just a flicker. The next day brought clouds, heavy and gray, hanging low enough to touch. The air turned cold as they reached a split in the land where a river carved deep and wide through the terrain. The water was high, churned with snow melt from the mountain caps, and there was no bridge, only slick rocks and wild current. Bo studied it for a long time. "We cross," he said finally. "No other way." Clara nodded, her face pale. He stripped the saddle, lashed their bags high and tight, then offered his hand. "Hold on like your life depends on it," he said. "Because it does." She climbed onto his back, arms tight around his neck. They waded in slow, each step a battle. The water surged, icy and fierce, dragging at his legs. Halfway across, a rock shifted beneath him, and he stumbled. Clara slipped from his back, sucked under in an instant. "Clara!" He plunged after her, boots dragging, breath gone in one cold gasp. He caught sight of her, arms flailing, hair slicked across her face, eyes wide. He dove again, grabbed hold of her dress, and pulled. The current fought him, but Bo fought harder. He dragged her up, coughed water, and pushed them both to shore, collapsing in a heap. She coughed hard, spit up river water, and gasped, "You came back. I told you I would." She lay on her back, shivering. "I tried to drown once. Back when I was 12. Thought it would be better. But something pulled me back. Like today. Maybe it's always you." He didn't answer, just wrapped her in a blanket and built another fire. They huddled under the stars that night, drying their clothes and bones, saying little. Sometimes it was silence that healed more than words. By the third day, the trail turned steep and mean. Rocky passes, narrow ledges. A wrong step meant a fall you didn't get up from. Beau's horse started limping from a stone caught in its hoof. Clara helped him tend it, working quietly, her hands now sure and steady. "You ever think about what comes next?" she asked. "Like, if we make it out of this, what then?" He thought for a moment. Maybe a patch of land where nobody comes looking, a cabin by water, chickens, a smokehouse. You could draw. I could pretend to farm. She laughed softly. "Pretend? I ain't much good at growing things, but I might try again." That night, something changed. It started with the sound of a twig snapping near camp, then a low growl. Not human. Beast. Beau froze. He reached slowly for the rifle beside him. Clara sat up. "What is it?" "Mountain lion." The fire cast shadows that danced along the canyon walls. The growl came again, closer, then the flash of yellow eyes. The cat lunged from the darkness, claws bared. Beau fired once, missed. It landed atop him, snarling, claws raking his side. Clara screamed. He fought it off with the butt of the rifle, struck hard twice, and the animal yowled. Clara grabbed the fire poker and slammed it against the lion's flank. It turned on her, fangs bared. But Beau put a bullet between its eyes. The beast dropped. Beau groaned, blood running from his side. "You're hurt." "Damn thing got me good," he muttered, falling back. Clara tore fabric from her dress and pressed it to the wound. "Hold still." "You done this before?" "No, but I watch my 10 chickens. Not so different." He chuckled, wincing. "A little different." She cleaned the gash with river water, wrapped him tight. "You saved my life," he whispered. "So we're even." He reached for her hand, squeezed it. The next morning they moved slower. Beau rode, with a limp, bandages soaked through. Clara led the horse by the reins when the slope grew too steep. She didn't complain, just pressed forward. By noon, smoke appeared on the far ridge. Not from firewood, from riders. Clara froze. "It's him. He found us." Beau squinted through the haze. "We've got an hour, maybe 2. We need to lose the trail." They veered west into a narrow gulch that twisted through limestone and overgrown brush. The ground turned soft underfoot, mud sucking at their boots. Clara kept glancing over her shoulder. "We can't outrun horses on foot. Then we don't run." She blinked. "What? We hide. We fight. We finish it." "No, we," she stopped, saw his face. "You're serious." "I've run from grief long enough. I won't run from this." She nodded slowly, jaw set. "Then I'll fight too." They found a cave hidden behind a cluster of cedars. Beau gathered rocks, branches, brush, anything to block the entrance from view. They doused the fire, quieted the horse, and waited. Hours passed. The sun dipped low. Then voices echoed through the gulch, men shouting, horses whinnying. Beau pulled Clara close, hand over her mouth. The voices grew nearer. Rufus's voice rose above the rest, loud, cruel, and close. "I know you're out here, girl. I can smell your damn breath." Clara trembled, but her eyes were dry. "Hard," Beau whispered. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." Footsteps crunched outside. A shadow passed over the cave's mouth. Then silence. Minutes crawled by. Finally, hooves receded. The canyon quieted. Only then did Beau exhale. But Clara didn't relax. She was staring at the mouth of the cave like she could still hear him. "He won't quit," she whispered. "He's not a man. He's a sickness." Beau nodded slowly. "Then we cut it out at the root." She looked at him, uncertain. "What does that mean?" "It means we stop running. Next time he comes, we make sure it's the last time." She stared at him, then down at her hands. They weren't trembling anymore. That night, they sat by a cold fire and passed the revolver back and forth, each taking turns practicing the weight, the balance, the click of the hammer. Clara raised it, aimed at a knot in the tree. Her hands were steady. "Looks like you've done this before," Beau said. "No, but I've thought about it enough times." He gave a low nod. "That's half the battle." They didn't sleep much. But in the silence between the stars, something settled between them. Not love, not yet, but something older. Trust, a shared fire. The storm was coming. They could feel it in the way the wind shifted and the birds flew low, but they were no longer running. They were waiting, ready. And when Rufus came again, it wouldn't be Clara who fled. It would be him who bled. The sky broke open with dawn like a split skull, light leaking in slow and red. Wind pushed through the canyon, tugging at Bo Harper's coat, stirring the coals of their dying fire. He stood just outside the cave, one hand resting on his revolver, the other shading his eyes as he scanned the ridge. Clara crouched behind a rock outcropping not far from him, her dress torn at the knees, face streaked with soot and resolve. Neither had spoken much in the last hour. Then came the crows, black as gun barrels, circling low. They always came first. Bo dropped his hand and spoke low and grim. "He's near." Clara rose, dusted her palms against her skirt. "You sure?" Crows don't circle for nothing. They gathered their gear in silence. Bo handed her the rifle, eyes locking with hers. "You remember where to aim?" She nodded. "Low if I'm scared. Center mass if I'm not." "Good girl." She didn't flinch at the praise, didn't blush or smile, just checked the chamber and nodded once. Bo saw the steel in her then, not the fragile kind born from pain, but the kind that rises after it, the kind that doesn't rust. By mid-morning, they'd moved to higher ground, a narrow shelf with a view of the gulch below, where Rufus and his men would have to pass. Clara lay belly down behind a fallen log, rifle braced, eyes steady on the trail. Bo crouched beside her, pistol in hand, shoulders still stiff from a mountain lion's bite. He leaned close. "When it starts, don't hesitate. The longer you think, the better chance they get a shot off first. I won't freeze." He studied her profile, sun-kissed, bruised, but calm. "I know." The sound came soft at first, then clearer. Hooves. 4, maybe 5 riders. A voice barking orders. Spread wide. She ain't but a scared rabbit. She won't run far. It was Rufus. Bo would have known that voice anywhere. Oil on gravel. Clara's breath hitched. She blinked hard but stayed focused. Then came the moment. Rufus rounded the bend, his hat cocked, his shotgun across the saddle. 2 men flanked him, rifles resting on their thighs. Behind them, a 4th rider trailing, scanning the brush. Bo whispered, "Now." Clara's rifle cracked once. The trailing rider dropped sideways off his horse, no scream, just the thud of a body meeting stone. The others wheeled their horses, yelling. Bo rose and fired twice, missed the first, clipped a man in the thigh with the second. His horse bolted, throwing him hard. Dust rose in clouds. Rufus dove behind a boulder, shotgun booming. The blast shredded bark inches from Clara's face. She ducked, chambered another round, and shifted left. Bo moved down the ledge, flanking. He felt the sting of adrenaline sharpen his limbs. Another shot rang, this one grazing the rock beside his leg. He dropped to a knee, aimed, fired. The wounded man screamed and went still. Now it was just Rufus. "Clara!" Rufus roared, voice cracking. "You come out now, girl, I'll make it quick. Keep running, and I'll drag it out like your mama." Silence followed. Then Clara stood. Bo's heart stopped. "Don't." She stepped out from behind the log, rifle down, but hands empty. "I'm right here, Rufus." Bo froze, rifle raised but finger off the trigger. Clara walked slowly down the slope, boots crunching over dry shale. She looked small and breakable, but she didn't shake. Rufus stood, dust on his coat, shotgun pointed at her. His face was older than Bo remembered, creased deep, bloated from drink, eyes yellow and full of rot. "You ran, girl. Thought you could hide. But rats can't outscurry the fire." "You're the fire?" Clara asked. "Funny. I thought you were just smoke." He sneered. "I made you. Don't forget it. You made nothing but pain." He raised the shotgun. Bo yelled, "Clara, down!" Too late. Rufus fired. Smoke exploded around her, but Clara dropped flat just in time. Buckshot tore over her head, biting into the dirt. Bo fired, missed. Rufus racked the shotgun, another shell in the chamber. Then Clara rolled and came up with Beau's revolver. One shot cracked through the canyon. It hit Rufus in the shoulder, spinning him like a wind-whipped weather vane. He screamed, dropped the shotgun, fell to his knees. Beau descended fast, rifle up. Rufus groped for the shotgun, cursing, bleeding. Clara stood over him, revolver shaking in her hands. He coughed blood. "You ain't got the guts." She raised the pistol. Beau arrived beside her, quiet but firm. "You don't need to pull the trigger. You already won." She looked at him, then down at Rufus. "I used to cry when he came home," she said, "every night, praying he'd fall off his horse and never wake. Then I prayed Ma would kill him. Then I prayed I'd die first." Rufus snarled, "You ungrateful." Clara fired again. The shot went wide, deliberate, just past his ear. He flinched like a beaten dog. "No more praying," she whispered. Beau lowered his rifle. "He won't follow." They left Rufus bleeding and broken, weaponless and crawling. Not out of mercy, Beau knew the land would take care of what they left behind. They rode until dusk. At the rim of a valley they paused. The land unfolded below, green in patches, a river winding like a silver thread through the lowlands. Smoke from cabins in the distance, thin and peaceful. Clara breathed deep. "It smells different here." "No blood in the dirt," Beau said. They found a place near the river and made camp. The fire crackled low. Clara sketched in the dirt with a stick 2 horses, a cabin, trees tall enough to touch the sky. "Think we could build it?" she asked. "With time." She leaned back on her hands. "I still dream about her. Ma, she's always by water, always smiling. She'd be proud." Clara didn't reply, but she smiled. Beau sat quiet for a while, watching the stars emerge. "I used to think living meant staying in one place, building walls, stacking stones, holding the line. Turns out, living means moving on, letting go." She nodded. "And choosing who rides beside you." They stayed there 3 nights, built the frame of a lean-to, fished the river, cleared brush. Clara laughed once, really laughed, and Beau turned just to hear it again. It sounded like hope. Then came the riders. 2 strangers, long coats, rifles on their backs. Not Rufus's men, too clean, too slow. They asked after the girl with the black curls and the bruised face. Said there was a price on her stepfather's head. Said he died crawling toward town with a knife in his gut. Beau didn't answer. Clara stood beside him, eyes calm. "He's dead?" she asked. One of the men nodded. "He made a 1/2 mile. Sheriff found him foaming." Beau felt her stiffen beside him. "Thank you," she said. The men tipped their hats and rode on. That night, the fire burned a little higher. Beau poured coffee into 2 cups and handed one to Clara. "Now what?" she asked. "You still got that drawing?" She pulled it from her pocket, creased and faded, but whole. He pointed to the 2 riders heading west. "Still time to follow them. Still time to start over," she said. They sipped in silence. The world stretched out before them, wide, wild, and unwritten. And behind them, nothing but ashen ghosts. So, what do we take from this tale? Maybe it's this: the West was never just a place. It was a proving ground. A place that tested what you were made of and burned away what you weren't. Some came to claim land. Others came to outrun their past. But every now and then, 2 people came not looking for anything, only be found. Clara was bruised, broken, and barefoot when she crossed that fence line. Beau was a man buried in his own silence. But they met in the fire and walked through it together. The rain came that night, soft at first, whispering over the canvas of their camp. Clara stirred in her blanket, eyes opening to the scent of wet earth and cedar. Beau sat nearby, knees drawn, rifle balanced across his lap like an old friend too often called upon. He hadn't slept. His bandaged shoulder throbbed with each heartbeat, but pain no longer registered the way it used to. "Rufus is dead," Clara whispered, voice rasping like gravel under wagon wheels. "Ain't he?" Beau didn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the black horizon where the firelight didn't reach. He bled out under the cottonwoods, he finally said. "I reckon the devil's got his hands full tonight." She exhaled, but the relief didn't settle clean. Even now, with Rufus buried under dirt and bad memories, the fear clung to her bones like a fever that wouldn't break. The next morning, they rode down from the high ridge, skirting burned-out trails and gulches gone dry from drought. Clara rode behind Bo on his bay, gelding, arms looped loosely around his waist. She said little, but her eyes tracked everything: the wind in the grass, the flick of a hawk's wings overhead, the old wagon tracks that cut deep into the prairie's spine. They found shelter in the remnants of a ghost town. 3 buildings stood, half collapsed and grayed by time: an old saloon, a blacksmith shed, and a church with its steeple split in 2 by lightning or worse. It was Bo who spotted the chimney first, intact and dry. "This'll do," he said. By dusk, they'd swept out the floor and patched what they could with hides and brush. Clara started a fire. Bo rested in a corner, eyes drifting shut for the first time in days. But rest didn't come easy. Not for him. Not anymore. When he did sleep, he dreamed of fire and hoofbeats, of his wife screaming in a storm he couldn't stop. And now Clara's face, bloodied, barefoot, looking back at him through the smoke. He woke with a grunt, hand already reaching for the rifle beside him. Clara was watching. She didn't flinch. "You fight in the war?" she asked quietly. Bo nodded. "Scout for the Union. Missouri line. Spent more time behind enemy fences than in front of 'em. That why you're always listening to shadows?" He gave her a long look. "Some shadows don't go away, Clara. They follow you, even when the fight's over." She turned back to the fire, letting the silence speak the rest. That night, trouble came again, not with guns this time, but boots. 4 of them. Bo heard the crunch of footsteps outside the church ruins just before dawn, when even coyotes kept their silence. He rose without a sound, motioned Clara back, and pressed himself against the wall. The voices were low. "Someone camped here recent. Fire's still warm." Another voice, rougher, meaner. "Crane's girl was spotted 3 days west, near the Copper Trail. You think this is them?" Bo tightened his grip on the rifle. Clara froze like a rabbit beneath a hawk. A third voice, "Ain't our job to question. Dead men don't collect bounties." Bo stepped out from the shadows and fired. The first shot tore through the man closest, dropping him in the mud. Chaos exploded. The other 2 scrambled for cover. Clara grabbed the pistol Bo had given her and slid behind the altar. Gunfire rattled through the crackboards. Splinters flew. The echo of death filled the abandoned church like a choir with blood in its throat. Bo moved fast despite his shoulder. He ducked, rolled, and fired again. 1 more outlaw fell with a scream. The last man tried to run. Clara stood and shot him in the leg. He crashed to the ground with a howl, crawling like a snake through broken pews. Bo stalked over, pressed the barrel to the outlaw's head. "Who sent you?" he growled. The man spat blood, eyes wide with hate. "Rufus had brothers." Bo didn't blink. "Now he's got 1 less." He pulled the trigger. Later, when the sun rose, Bo buried the bodies outside the church wall. Clara stood by, face pale, but steady. She didn't ask him to spare them. She didn't cry. "You still think we're running?" she asked. Bo looked at her, really looked. Her face no longer hollow. Her back straighter. The girl who stumbled barefoot into his life was gone. "We ain't running," he said. "We're finishing what they started." They made for the Copper Ridge. There was a man there Bo once knew, a Kiowa elder named Red Elk, who owed Bo a favor from the war days. If anyone could help them disappear for good, it was him. The trail wasn't easy. Bandits roamed it like buzzards. But Bo and Clara moved with purpose now. They rode at night, rested during daylight in dry creek beds and caves thick with bat smell. And the more they traveled, the more Clara spoke. She told him of her mother's song, the only soft thing in their house, when Rufus was drunk. Of the old dress she buried with her. Of how, when the beating started, she stopped dreaming. Dreams were dangerous. Dreams made you believe in escape. Bo listened without interruption. Sometimes he'd hand her his canteen and say nothing at all. Other times he'd tell her about the war. About the time he killed a boy no older than her because he thought the glint in his hand was a gun. It was a mirror. The boy died holding his own reflection. On the seventh night, they reached the edge of Copper Ridge. The moon rode high and silver, throwing shadows like ghosts across the plain. Then came the riders, 6 men silhouetted on the ridge, guns drawn. One wore Rufus Crane's hat. Bo cursed low. They're not brothers. They're bounty hunters. Clara didn't hesitate. She reached for her rifle. No, Bo said, voice flat. You ride. I stay. I'm not leaving you behind. You got a future. I got debts. A moment hung between them, taut as a drawn bowstring. Then Clara dismounted, pulled Bo's revolver from her saddlebag, and loaded it clean. Then we finished this together. They made their stand near the rim of the canyon, where the rock narrowed and the wind howled like a dying god. Clara climbed up to a flat outcrop with the repeater. Bo crouched below, rifle cradled, eyes narrowed. The first rider came fast. Clara shot him clean from the saddle. Bo picked off the second before he cleared his holster. Then the others swarmed, bullets singing, hooves pounding. Bo was hit again, in the thigh this time. Blood poured hot. He gritted his teeth and kept firing. Clara screamed. One of them had gotten too close. She wrestled with him on the rocks, the gun knocked away. Bo, half collapsing, dragged himself toward her, but it was Clara who ended it. She stabbed the man with Bo's belt knife, over and over, hands slick and shaking. When it was done, only silence remained, broken, terrible silence. Clara sat beside Bo, clutching the knife, chest heaving. I was scared, she whispered. You still did it, Bo rasped. That's what matters. Red Elk found them the next morning. He brought medicine, food, and quiet understanding. He listened to their tale, nodded once, and said, You have shed the skin of prey. Now you walk as wolves. They stayed with his people for a time, long enough for Bo to heal, for Clara to learn new words, new ways. The scars remained, but they no longer defined her. One night, weeks later, she stood at the edge of the firelight, watching the stars blink into being. Bo joined her, limping still but upright. You think we'll ever stop looking over our shoulders? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, with a quiet smile, I don't look back no more. Not since you. She turned toward him, eyes soft. And if they come again, then they'll find out what happens when fire rides with us. The flames crackled between them, and for the first time in either of their lives, the night didn't feel so long.